Welcome to the Plant Cunning Podcast,
where we explore our relationship to plants, other people, and the mysteries of nature.
Coming to you from the high Allegheny Plateau in central New York.
We are your hosts, AC Stauble
and Isaac Hill.
Okay, welcome again to the Plant Cunning Podcast. We've got ZamboniFunk for the quarterly astrological forecast. This is the fall forecast. So Zamboni, how are you doing? How has your summer been? What are you looking forward to this fall?
What's up? What's up? Good to see y'all again. I love hanging out with y'all. The summer featured, for me, I launched a Fundamentals of Astrology course, and that was pretty exciting. That was my first time teaching under my own website and my own name and all this. And so that went pretty well. Had a little cohort of folks who came through, and some of them were brand new to astrology. And they really helped me to get my curriculum together. You know, I was pretty sure about how I was going to do it. You know, y'all know that I am 10,000 readings deep now, probably 11,000 at this point.
Yeah, congrats on both of those things.
Yeah.
Both.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing takes the place of reps. Just do it another time. And this is how you learn the craft. But so because of that, I felt like I was pretty competent at what I was going to teach. And I feel like I can do it. And so I did, and it went pretty well. People reviewed it strongly. They think that they learned a lot through it, but there were a couple of holes in my curriculum and this kind of thing. And so I revamped that. And so I've actually got a next version of it. This time it's called Astrology from the Ground Up. And it begins on October 24th. You can find that on my website, ZamboniFunk.com. And I am pretty hype about it. This one, the students were big nerds, and one of the things that they really wanted from me was homework. And so I didn't give them any homework last time. And so this time it's almost like a workbook so you can do a reading for your own chart from a couple of different angles. There'll be like ways for you to apply what we have learned every week to your own chart. And so we're going to be doing that. And I think it remains to be seen, but I think that this is going to train up a pretty tough cohort of astrologers. I think they're going to be good at the craft once they make it to the end of the course. So I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's going to go really well. And yeah, that's what we're doing. I'm going through my Jupiter return right now. So teaching is the move. That's like what I'm up to these days.
Awesome.
Nice.
Really great to hear about it. And I'm just like so thrilled that you're stepping into that teacher role because you're a great teacher. You've taught me a lot, even through our conversations, so I'm excited for you.
Word. Thank you. Yeah, that's something that I resisted for a really long time.
Lean into it.
Yeah, here we are,
Yeah.
I think it's a really great way to learn too, and to really know what you know, is to teach, because to teach something, you have to relearn it for yourself, and then be able to articulate it. And that act of articulating it helps it embed it deeper into your own consciousness.
To be able to explain something coherently to someone who has never heard it before is a very important thing to be able to do. If you want to thoroughly know what you're talking about, you got to be able to do that. And so doing that forced me to get really clear about the things that I was teaching. And I think it has also improved my craft, like my readings are better now. So yeah, it's been a fun time.
Yeah,
awesome.
Definitely. And then the other thing about teaching is you learn so much from your students too. Like you were saying, finding the holes in your curriculum, and things like that. And they just might see different sides of things, or, I don't know. It's such a win-win to have that teacher-student relationship too.
A very important relationship that, historically through human ancestry, the teacher-student relationship is paramount for creating better understandings of where we live in time, which is what I'm trying to do. The study of time is the whole craft. And so it's great to have students who have other ideas about the things that I'm saying, you know what I mean? And they'll ask questions, and I'll be like, I didn't really think about that. What
Yeah.
what do I think about this based on my foundational principles that I just spent an hour and a half to telling you about? So yeah, it's cool. Cool
Yeah.
stuff.
Sweet.
So you, Plant Cunning listener, can find the next version, the next iteration of this course, Astrology from the Ground Up, at ZamboniFunk.com. Please come check it out. I invite all type of people who don't necessarily know anything about astrology. This course is from the ground up. So if all you do is like you're aware that astrology exists, then you will be reading charts by the end of it, and you will be competent at doing that.
That's so cool.
Yes, and I think it's very helpful for a lot of people to like just get oriented as well. Like, and like 'cause it's hard. It's good to have someone take you by the hand and show you this is what's going on. This is what astrology is, and then come out the other side and know how to read a chart. That's great. We had a pretty exciting summer so far too. We had our second Plant Cunning Conference.
Hey, shout out to the Plant Cutting Conference. How was that? Was it so dope? I'm so sad I missed it.
It was very dope. Very dope.
I had a great time.
Excellent vibes.
Yeah, everyone had a good time. I think it was like 10 out of 10. Everyone had fun. Everyone got fed. There was like, we leveled up the coffee game. The People's Cauldron crew brought their espresso maker, and it was, espresso. We had a cold brew point person. Like, so there was just like, great coffee and tea all weekend. And
the weather was nice.
The weather was perfect. The gardens looked great. The speakers were all amazing. Like, couldn't have asked for a better weekend. It was a really, really good one.
Yeah. So now we're planning for next year, and it's going to be probably August. We haven't picked the exact date yet, but probably August. So we'll see. We'll announce it soon.
This is no announcement. This is
not an announcement.
Thinking about it.
Next
too early for all that.
Probably we'll have another one.
We'll probably do it again. We're still tired. So ask us in a month.
Yeah.
right.
As you can tell, listener of the Plant Cutting podcast, if you haven't seen many episodes over the summer, that's probably because we were focusing all energy on the conference.
Yeah.
So but we're back up and running. We're doing more episodes. I'm doing readings myself with the Vedic astrology. Yeah. Learning a lot. Getting ready for fall. We have three giant giant orange pumpkins that came out of the compost pile. They all volunteered. They're on the porch, so we've got fall vibes are here now.
We just did a big hawthorn berry harvest. This is one of the baskets that we got today.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
rich color.
We already made like 1.5 gallons of tincture, and I'm gonna actually dehydrate these for winter tea with like reishi, ginger, cinnamon. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Shout out to the Traveling Herb Farm.
Yes. Thank you.
And so what do we have to look forward to this fall? I hear it's a lot of fun.
A lot of Mars.
Mostly fun.
Yeah, Mars and fun. They go together, right?
Okay.
Yeah. While we're looking forward into the fall season. That's what we're here to do. And it is definitely a lot of Mars and Pluto action. That's the name of the game. That's what we've got going on right now. Pluto has been sort of like playing a little footsie with Aquarius. Are we going in there? Are we not going in there? Just kind of flirting with it a little bit. And so currently right now, Pluto is back in Capricorn. And this is it for Pluto in Capricorn. We're going to get 2 more months from a couple of weeks ago. And then after that, we will see the ultimate ingress into Pluto and Aquarius that's happening during this quarter. And while that happens, then we've also got Mars in Cancer making an opposition first to Pluto in Capricorn at the very end of Capricorn. So especially if you have late Capricorn and Cancer placements, then you're likely to see that get lit up in a pretty major kind of way. And, Mars is going to be the planet of aggression or anger or inflammation or, on a good day, maybe athleticism or verve and drive to get things done, ambition and that sort of stuff. Now, this is Mars in Cancer, which is Mars in its fallen position, right? And the way that I teach fall is the idea of it's not a weak position in the way that detriment is like a weak position. It's like it doesn't know, it like can't, the planet in detriment can't really do the thing that it wants to do very effectively. Fall instead is like it is strong, but strong in ways that can be actively harmful to the ends that you want to do. You know, so Mars in Cancer is Mars being so like active and aggressive and all of these kinds of things, but in the home space or something like this. I just saw a comic where we had the like Greek warrior with the spear and the shield and all that like at a baby shower, and just like wildly out of place here. Like what are we doing here? You know what I mean? And so Mars in Cancer, you know, we could get into a situation where it's like we need fire and knives for the kitchen and this kind of thing, right? Like that can be useful, but lots of times it can also get aggressive in moments when sensitivity is typically the thing that you want. And so there's a lot of that. And then if we think about Pluto, then Pluto is a little bit like I think of Pluto as like the funhouse mirror a lot of times, right? And so you look into the funhouse mirror and you get a distorted image back. And so that distorted image can look like body dysmorphia, or it can look like it can look like confusion, and there can be like power dynamics involved, especially hidden power dynamics, things that are like strings that are getting pulled from off screen or this kind of thing, right? That sort of stuff alongside or in opposition to Mars, who is already maybe feeling some feelings that don't know where to go. Looks like a situation that could get volatile. It looks like something that could like want to boil over in some kind of way that could be, you know, it definitely has the potential to be ugly, especially since we have Mars. So after Mars makes that opposition to Pluto in Capricorn, then it's going to immediately head into Leo. And so that's nice because it'll be like a little away from that Pluto. But then immediately after that, Pluto's going to move into Aquarius. So we're just going to see some more Mars-Pluto opposition. And Mars is going to station retrograde. And we're going to see Mars moving backwards and catch another opposition to Pluto. And then next year in 2025, then Mars is going to station direct and move forward and oppose that Pluto for a third time. So it's a lot of Mars-Pluto dynamics that are sort of like ramping up this quarter. We're sort of going to begin to see some of this stuff starting to show up here. So that's one element of what we have going on here this quarter. And then the other thing that is really major that we've got going on here, in addition to a Mercury retrograde, which is just like for extra confusion and extra like maybe we don't understand exactly what's going on because it's going to be a Mercury retrograde station opposite to Neptune or square to Neptune in Pisces. And so, you know, Neptune's going to be a little delusional or boundaryless, very good for imagination, very bad for understanding what a fact is and these kinds of things. So we've got that Mercury retrograde that's just going to just like sprinkle a little bit of extra sauce on there, right? But then the other thing that we've got going on is we've got eclipses. So and we're on the fence with these eclipses. So we're going to have one eclipse that is a full moon eclipse that one's actually on Neptune in Pisces, and this one is going to start our Virgo Pisces eclipse cycle. Eclipses go on for about 1.5 years at a time, and eclipses tend to be like catalytic moments where energies that might have been building up for some time can reach a kind of tipping point beyond which things can change fairly dramatically. And they are also moments of darkness, right? It is a moment when an otherwise bright object, such as the full moon or the sun, is cast into shadow. And so it'll be a moment where there can be a little bit of confusion or uncertainty about what's going on, especially if we've got a full moon lunar eclipse conjunct Neptune, which is the planet of confusion and deep ocean dynamics and what even am a world to live in and all of this kind of stuff. Then it looks like an interesting introduction into Pisces and Virgo eclipses that will go on for a next 1.5 years after this. So we've got that one. Then we've got the ingress of the sun into Libra, which will mark the beginning of fall or autumn. And then after that, we've got a new moon solar eclipse at the beginning of Libra. So that's going to be the last of our Libra and Aries eclipses. And so then we're back into sort of like looking at what we've got going on with Mars and Venus. So Venus rules Libra Venus rules Libra and Mars rules Aries, and they are essentially opposite to one another. Not all the time opposite to each other, but sort of like by their nature, they are opposite to each other.
Yeah.
And so looking at relational dynamics and the kind of difference between what I want and the kind of stuff that I want to move around in the world, and I want to shape the world in my image as I see fit. That's going to be your Aries stuff. And elegance and grace and etiquette and this kind of thing that is associated with Venus and Libra. So we'll see one more of those eclipses. And so to be in an eclipse cycle moment where we've got confusion and darkness and uncertainty at the same time as Mars Pluto, where we've got darkness and uncertainty and maybe like underbelly dynamics associated with Pluto and the things that are hiding beneath the surface and that sort of stuff, and big feelings around that. It definitely looks like a very volatile period, especially since we've got the American election that's going to be going on around the same time and all of the rest of it. It looks like a party is what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah.
Lots of fun. Lots of fun.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So do y'all want to take a look at some charts, or do you have something to say about what I've been sort of rambling for a little while here?
That all makes a lot of sense.
It was a good overview.
Yeah.
And good, great description. So
yeah, let's look at some charts.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Starting with
the first one we're going to look at here is going to be the Pisces eclipse. So here we've got a full moon in Pisces, which is, so to be fair, this eclipse is not our strongest eclipse. This one is over 10 degrees away from the nodes. So we've got the sun here at 25 degrees of Virgo, and we've got the node at the south node at 60 degrees of Libra. And so we're pretty distant here. This is likely to, in the sky, this will look like a shadow across the full moon, but it's not like annular, or it's not going to be like a fully red moon or anything like that, right? It'll just look like a shadow on there. So, the main thing that we can notice here is that the moon is between Saturn and Neptune. And so, if we're thinking about, so Saturn and Neptune are getting closer and closer, right? This is going to be one of our more major things historically that we're looking toward pretty soon. Next year in 2025, Neptune is going to move into Aries, and Saturn is going to move into Aries at basically the same time. And so we're going to get a Saturn and Neptune conjunction at the beginning of Aries. And so we're building up to that right now. So Saturn is the planet of structures and boundaries and discipline and obligation and responsibility and all of that sort of stuff, right? Hard things, both in the sense of difficult or challenging, as well as hard things in the sense of like solid and like unmoving, that kind of thing. So we've got both of those, and we got Neptune, who is the planet of deep ocean dynamics, waves and uncertainty and borderless, boundaryless, like this kind of thing. And so there's plenty of like push and pull as far as that is concerned. And none of the information looks good. None of the information seems intelligible. One of the things we can notice here is that the sun is in Virgo, ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is at 14 degrees of Virgo, opposite to Saturn at 15 degrees of Pisces. So, Pisces planets are kind of anathema to, they're kind of poisonous to Mercury. Mercury is going to want to, especially Mercury in Virgo, is going to want to sort of like dissect things and make things understandable and, small bits of information. Mercury in Virgo is very good at inductive reasoning, sort of like getting our base parts and then building up from there. Mercury in Virgo loves that kind of thing. Saturn in Pisces, Saturn is also associated with negation and denial and just telling you no sometimes. And so an opposition to Saturn immediately feels like some kind of no energy going on. And then big Pisces stuff, right? So where Virgo likes the intelligible dissected bits of things, then Pisces is the big picture stuff. Again, we're in the deep ocean and that sort of stuff, just kind of washing through. So whatever information you thought you had, we're likely to see some difficulty with understanding it. Now, we do have a square to Jupiter in Gemini here. And so that is, we'll take it.
What is this? What's the place for this chart?
This is New York City.
This is New York City. Okay. So that's it'll probably be similar to Washington, D.C. too. But Jupiter's pretty close on that ascendant, and Mercury is ruling the ascendant as well. So that's a little bit of a good thing there. I mean, Jupiter doesn't like being in Gemini, but he's next to the ascendant, and the ruler of the ascendant is exalted. So that's pretty good.
Yeah. These are like Jupiter is in detriment in Gemini and Mercury is opposite to Saturn. These are not our ideal conditions for these planets, but we will take what we can get. So, if Mercury is going to be exalted, we'll take that. If we can put Jupiter on the ascendant in a night chart in detriment, I don't care. We'll put Jupiter on the ascendant. Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
right.
One of the things that I always say about Jupiter and Gemini is it's good for new ideas. Yeah. Jupiter is the planet of confirmation, of saying yes to things, in the same way that Saturn is your no planet, then Jupiter's our yes, right? And so Jupiter wants to say yes to the Mercury things in Gemini. And so Gemini is the split one, right? They're the twins that are looking in opposite directions and this kind of thing. And so especially like ideas that come from disparate sources and being able to work with them together or make a coherent whole between them, Jupiter and Gemini is very good for that kind of thing. And so it does look like there's good possibility for different stuff to take place here as in the mind space. Some of it might get a little scary, and there might be some deep, dark, weird stuff in there that you might not have been trying to look at necessarily. And that stuff, because this is our first eclipse in a cycle that's going to last for a year and a half, we can guess that this is only an inkling of what we actually see, blossoming throughout that time. Throughout that time, we're going to see the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. And so, the dissolution of infrastructure might be a good way to think about Saturn and Neptune together and this kind of thing, right? So we are likely to see an inkling of that. But with Jupiter and Gemini here, I wonder if there might be a certain sense of, okay, if infrastructures or institutions are fading in some kind of way, is there something we can do instead of that might be a good idea? Are there some good ideas we can have yet that might be thinking outside the box in some kind of way?
Yeah, so this looks like a fun, this isn't too bad, but it's definitely, this is a portend of what's to come, the inkling of what's to come in this cycle.
Yeah. It looks like it's going to be an important moment of working on something new that might be a little deep and dark and weird. And there'll be plenty to think with over this upcoming period.
So like deep and dark and weird, how? Is there a way that you would recommend preparing ourselves for this eclipse? Like, what are you going to be doing during this eclipse?
Well, it's going to be in the middle of the night, so I'm going to sleep through it.
All right. Probably good anyway to do.
Yeah. A full moon conjunct Neptune under basically any conditions is going to be great for sleeping. Sleep right through that. Probably have some weird dreams. A lot of folks are going to forget them. You know what I mean? which is probably what you want a little bit on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, one of the main things that comes through with that configuration is confusion. You know, like full moon with Neptune would be confusion, or full moon lunar eclipse would be confusion. And so what if we did them together? And we dissolved all of our infrastructures, institutions, boundaries, borders, all that sort of thing. Like, what if we just didn't understand anything anymore? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it looks, especially with Saturn there looks like there's a certain amount of fear that could go with it. And so, you know, especially since this is the beginning, and, you know, like I would think about, like, just it's not time to freak out yet. You know, I saw a meme the other day that was like somebody's therapist told them coldly, we do not have enough information to freak out about this yet.
Yeah.
You know, that's where we're at with this one. Like, we don't know enough.
Yeah.
And so, like, I know that we don't know, and uncertainty can sometimes be, right? But like, just if we can just cool this one out for a little bit, you know, get some nice sleeps, and then we'll see where we're going after this. There's other stuff going on this quarter that is more, I don't know, concretely scary. That you know, like that we will have enough information to freak out about.
Right.
So,
and this is a pretty mild eclipse.
Yeah. We're 11 degrees away from the nodes and all of this, right? Like, we're just getting started. This one is worth mentioning because the nodes are going to change signs pretty soon. And so we're going to stop doing the eclipse cycle that we've been doing and move into the next eclipse cycle. And what that's going to look like is as yet unknown. But, you know, seeing this first one with Jupiter in Gemini, and Jupiter is ruling that Pisces eclipse, you know, there might be some potential for new ideas here. If you do wake up in the middle of the night having had a dream or something like that, might be worth writing down, you know, and then for reference later, even if you don't necessarily understand what it's about, like, maybe we will come back to some of the imagery that came through and get some important information from that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so how does this first eclipse stack up to the last eclipse of this cycle? So we got
the last eclipse of the Aries Libra.
Yeah.
Or
So the next one coming up. So this one is the first of the new cycle, and then the next one 2 weeks later will be the last of the last cycle.
Yeah, let's take a look at that. So this one is going to be a new moon solar eclipse in Libra. This one is immediately conjunct Mercury in Libra. I like Mercury in Libra pretty well. I like Mercury in an air sign. Mercury is the chatty planet, is the one that wants to do communication and transportation, all that sort of stuff. Libra is very much the sort of like what's going on over there sign. It's the sign of the scales. And so cares a lot about what's happening on the if it can only be balanced if the other side is also well understood, and this kind of thing, right? And so I do like to see Mercury in the air sign here. But of course, the thing that we really need to pay attention to is that these folks in Libra are the next thing that they're going to do is they're going to make a square to Mars in Cancer here. So Mars in Cancer is at 15 degrees. So this is, you know, especially, so the way that I've been seeing Venus in Libra, Venus has been in Libra for the last week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that. From where we are today, it's Tuesday, September 10th. The way that I've seen that has been like the absence of decorum or the absence of etiquette, like, you know, or things things being like not nice in some kind of way. Like, I had a friend who her business partner was like sort of disrespected her in a meeting, and so it was a breach of etiquette. And then after that, then she was telling me about it. and it turned out that her phone was calling this person, and so she just said a whole bunch of stuff on their voicemail, and so it was like, yes, you are.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
That
So
what? That never happened. Oh, okay. That's crazy.
yeah, bad news bears over here.
Yeah.
So that has been the way that I've been thinking about Venus on the South Node in Libra, right? So because the South Node tends to want to drain things, it wants to purge, it wants to get rid of stuff. So getting rid of etiquette in Libra, this kind of thing, right? So already we're looking at like things are not necessarily super nice, and Mercury is frequently okay with not being nice. Mercury will eviscerate that ass if it's when it's time to do so. And so to see, especially since this is Mercury in Libra square to Mars in Cancer, it definitely like you could certainly see some mean girl energy going on here. I think on the world stage, mean girl energy is a vibe, we could say, like geopolitically, the idea of like, like, is it time to topple a superpower or something like that? Like the meanest girl of all has been so mean for so long that maybe no one respects her anymore, and we can do some sort of like backhanded, especially like a backhanded sort of situation. This is what this looks like, especially with Mars in Cancer, because like Mars in Aries is just gonna punch you in your mouth. You know what I mean? Like you can shut up right now. But Mars in Cancer is going to be more inclined to like lead with softness or something like that. And so this eclipse does look a little, especially since, so it's in Libra and it's ruled by Venus. We can notice that Venus is in Scorpio. So Venus in Scorpio, again, like you can get into the mean girl vibes here, or there might be, Scorpio, the way that Scorpio wields power is, I often think about like a puppet master, right? Like in quiet, in the darkness, or off stage somehow. And this Venus in Cancer is making a grand trine to the no boys. So we've got a trine to Saturn in Pisces here, and we've got a trine to Mars in Cancer. So this is like the I can do bad all by myself kind of vibes here. You know what I mean? Like I am
my friends, my two bad boy friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And we're friends, right? For sure. Like we can definitely get into some trouble here. So if troublemaking is what you're after, because maybe there's been some backstabbing up to this point or something, or maybe it's time for some backstabbing or something like this. This definitely looks like the sort of situation where you could get into some kind of nastiness. Nastiness might go on, especially since we can see that. I know, Isaac, you probably noticed already that we've got Pluto here on the ascendant, right? In Capricorn.
Yeah.
You got anything to say about that?
Well, Pluto there, Venus is on the MC as well. Really exactly conjunct. Well, for this chart, and that grand trine is just looking real tight, real fine, real smoking, boiling. I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah. Secretive, dark, like shady behavior. Definitely. But
Be sexy.
Could be sexy too. Yeah, exactly. A little sexy. Yeah.
Goth, So yeah,
I guess we'll see. But
we will see.
yeah, I really like that. It's a fun like alignment of planets here. You got that nice grand trine, Venus and the no boys, and then the eclipse itself is almost exactly with Mercury, and nicely square to Mars. It's fun. I wish I could interpret that better, but
sure. Yeah. Well, right. There's fun that could be had here for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know that like eclipse time is the moment for like trying new and potentially dangerous things in a sexy way. I don't think that I think there's, especially because eclipses, eclipses are associated with dragons, and dragons are not following your orders. And so your arms are too short to box with dragons, is what I always say about eclipses. And so if whips and chains aren't already your thing already from a long time, you got 10,000 hours on that already, then this is maybe not the time to break that out, even though it might be exciting. Maybe this is maybe, right? So if we're thinking Mercury and Mars, then the obvious go-to with Mercury Mars is angry words or divisive speech or something like that, right? And so I would think, but like I wouldn't think that it would be upfront and forward angry words. It's going to be like deeply emotional, and it's more backstabby with that Venus in Scorpio, So one of the things that I have been saying throughout Venus and Libra now, Venus and Libra on the South Node, has been like, let's maybe increase goodwill by giving gifts to others and being generous in some kinds of ways that maybe we can get people to not be in a mood to backstab us when this happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And resist the urge to write some like secret terrible review of somebody. Like, I don't know. Like this, it's like bad words in secret. Looks like to me.
Right. Yeah, this is a great time to get in a fight with an anon on Twitter or something like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that eclipse is like right there in the 10th house. It's right in the middle of the sky. So it's also it's hidden. It's hidden, but it's also very out
hiding in plain sight.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a fun eclipse. I wonder. I wish I had more time to like look at like Kamala Harris's chart, and I mean, there's been some interesting things this year, like with her chart and with Trump's chart. Like that assassination attempt was like right while Algol, and Mars, and anyway, that's another time. But I wonder what this is doing there. Okay. Anyway,
is Algol at 26?
Yes.
Now that I didn't think about it until you mentioned that, but I do notice that Uranus is at 26 degrees of here.
Was it Mars and Uranus?
It was Mars Uranus, yeah.
Conjunct Algol. They were both conjunct on Algol. That's actually also conjunct Trump's midheaven, his MC.
Sure.
He got shot on that, like during that conjunction.
Right. Yeah.
Algol
Right, exactly. And yeah, so I haven't spent a lot of time looking at Donald Trump's chart or anything like that, but I do think that this looks like a moment for, if you were gonna make a political power play that was sort of backhanded and there's something hiding in plain sight, this would be a moment to do it, for sure.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm getting. It seems like some kind of information, which may or may not be true, but some information, some like, what do they call it? Whistleblower or some kind of like that kind of a thing, but kind of underhanded too, is going to come out around that time. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know about a whistleblower. A whistleblower seems a little straightforward to me. This seems more deceptive somehow, and like electoral politics, you know what I mean? So like, and we're getting into, this is October 2nd, so we're getting toward October surprise time and this kind of thing, right? So like, like especially like there will be landmines under the feet of politicians during this time.
Yeah. Well, I wonder,
this is a solar eclipse. And so that's a shadow across the face of the sun. The sun's going to be associated with politicians or celebrities or emperors, king types. And so this is going to be a moment where those kinds of folks are likely to be set up somehow. And it's obvious that they're going to be trying to be setting each other up at this point, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
very exciting stuff
about how everything went down this summer with both campaigns, and how well kind of orchestrated it seemed to be. It seemed like Kamala took some lessons from Kendrick Lamar. That's what I think.
In what way?
Well, so the way that it was played, it was like, I mean, I think before, when it was Trump Biden, Trump was obviously going to win, and then after there was that debate, and Biden showed that he was actually senile. And then after that, his rating went way down, and then Trump was like on top of the world. He was like, I'm definitely going to win. Then he gets shot. I don't know who had to. I'm not sure who had anything to do with that, but I mean, anyway.
No one knows. Certainly wasn't the FBI.
They waited until after that, and after Donald Trump picked his running mate to drop Biden out of the race, and then.
This is really intriguing timing.
Kamala just got.
This timing is so intriguing. I don't know if you guys can hear me right now, but like this being the moment for it to stop is like A+, A1 right now.
Anyway, maybe we shouldn't talk about this.
That was enough of that.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. I don't. It will.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this is what we're dealing. This quarter is election season, you know. So we're
It sure
gonna
is.
talk about it a little bit. You know, it's hard to parse out what's what, but there's definitely. I mean, they're definitely going to try. Both sides are going to try their darndest to win.
Their darndest is the right way to say it, I think. So then, shall we talk about the ingress?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the ingress.
All right. Let's do it.
But like, is she waited for Biden to show how senile he was, and then she had to, like, there was no time at that time then to do a full, preliminary, what's it called, where the Democratic candidates against each other.
Right. Yeah.
So by that,
if we're talking about backstabbing and head chopping, it doesn't necessarily have to be the other team, right?
Yeah.
Backstabbing ideally happens on your own team.
Yeah, right.
Well, she played her cards pretty well, I think, so far.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And there will be more to say about election times in a little bit once we get into November, but we're not quite to November yet. We're still in September now, looking at the ingress, looking at the sun moving into Libra. So this is in between the eclipses that we've already discussed. We had the full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces, and then the ingress here, and then the eclipse that we just mentioned. So do you wanna take a look at it here? I know ingresses are your jam, Isaac.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, we're looking at the ingress, and it's sun rising from, this is New York City.
Yes.
It'll probably be pretty similar to Washington D.C.
And what's the date on this?
This is September 22nd.
Awesome. Thanks.
So we've got the sun in the first house with the south node and with Venus. So Venus is still in at the last degree of Libra, ruling the chart, ruling the sun, who's just entered, and ruling the south node. So she's very strong, but just about to enter Scorpio. So she's going from a place of strength to going to a place of weakness. And the sun is just about to conjoin the south node. So the sun is entering his biggest place of weakness. He's debilitated in Libra, and it's not just, it's the south node, which destroys the sun. It's going to cause his eclipse in a few days. So the sun is entering this very, very weak point. So it looks like this, like going from strength to weakness to me. We've got the Mars in Cancer in the 10th house, a little far from the MC, but still still there. Mars is, I mean, we can look at the different houses and so on, but it's not as like the other ingresses I think were more important for the whole year. This is just for the fall quarter, and I think this is just kind of alter the previous ingresses to a certain degree, but not by too much. But again, we see that like going from strength to weakness. That's kind of the theme I see with this.
Sure, sure. Especially for solar figures. You
Yeah.
know, those
Yeah.
politicians and celebrities and, you know, the ruling elites in whatever way that is, you know, and that could be, you know, the person who owns the business that you work at or whatever, you know what I mean? Like that person is going to be the solar figure. And so that definitely looks like this looks like a quarter, a 3 month period here of like centralized power isn't working very well here. The idea of like an authority figure who knows what's going on and is sort of like giving orders or delivering understanding or something like this, that's not really happening here. That's not what is up really. We can notice that Mercury is also, you know, separating from an opposition from Saturn and approaching an opposition to Neptune. So this is, you know, again, we like Mercury in Virgo, but this is a rough one. This is, you know, this is Mercury being pretty well maltreated here. And so, you know, we do see that Mercury is separating from a square to Jupiter. So, you know, again, we will take it. Like to see, you know, that kind of thing wherever we can. But the information system doesn't look like it's working very well here. There's plenty of confusion. There's plenty of you know, thinking with solar figures, and this is, you know, like election times and this kind of thing, we might think about how no matter who wins, no one believes it, you know, like
Right.
the other side doesn't.
Half of the people in the United States don't want, you know, either of them. But and then half the people aren't going to believe it anyway. Yeah, whoever wins.
Yeah.
Who that half is, maybe 25% of the and then anyway. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so definitely things, and if we're looking at Mars in Cancer, then like things being divisive at home might be a situation going on here. So yeah, the quarter looks a little rough, especially if you're looking to authority figures for your understanding and this kind of thing. This looks like a moment where like I mean, I'm pretty well always an advocate for outside the box thinking, you know, but the sort of like top down authority structures are not doing it this quarter. And so at very best, if there's a top down informational system which is going to tell you how to live your life or what kinds of things to be afraid of and this kind of thing, then at your very best, you're going to have to spend some time like reading between the lines and this kind of stuff. So yeah, that's just kind of ongoing throughout the time here, you know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
All right. So that then leads us to the solar eclipse in Libra. That's a new moon solar eclipse that I mentioned already, or that we spent some time looking at and that the internet thought we should stop talking about.
Right.
And so then maybe the next thing worth looking at is the full moon in Aries that follows that, just to get a little idea of where we're going and our sort of progression through time here. So a full moon in Aries, October 17th. This is going to be the main
Yes. Where Pluto and like where Pluto and Mars.
Yeah, exactly. So now we're getting into Pluto Mars time, right? Mars is getting closer and closer to the end of Cancer here, which is getting closer and closer to an opposition with Pluto at the end of Capricorn. Pluto is, you know, done with the retrograde cycle and is moving out of Capricorn at this point. And so moving forward on the Pluto stuff, but, you know, moving forward on Pluto stuff, that's going to be moving forward on pulling strings and power dynamics and, you know, rotting things. You know, I like, you know, rotting things when it is compost or something like that. You mentioned you had some volunteer pumpkins, right? That's a Pluto vibe, right? You didn't even that was hidden. You didn't think that that was gonna be there. And then now you got these giant pumpkins. Like there's a kind of power in that compost patch that you kind of like didn't even think was, or didn't pay attention to, right?
Yeah.
So that's Pluto on a good day, right? Love to see it. And so, you know, there definitely is the possibility for that kind of thing. But to see a full moon here in Aries ruled by Mars, you know, so we've got mutual reception between the moon and Mars. So Mars is ruled by the moon and the moon is ruled by Mars. And so that does give us a certain sense of like, maybe we can work it out. Maybe something can be workable or possible here. Maybe we can cooperate in some kind of way. But it does look like, you know, we've got the moon right here with Chiron as well. And the next thing we're going to see is a square to Pluto. Like that's, oh, I guess, no. Yeah, that's right. So it looks like deep wounding coming to the surface and thinking about the full moon, right? So the full moon is like when, you know, hospitals are always aware of the full moon because wild shit is going on and people are hurting themselves and each other at that time. Police are always aware of that. You know, like it's when the tide is high, the emotional tide is high and things are overflowing in some kind of way. And so this full moon looks like a moment where it's like it is popping off. It's going down out here for this.
This is like
looks like a very active and raucous kind of time. Say what?
It's like the beginning of Halloween season. This is like this is very Halloween moon to me. For sure. And not in a candy kind of way. No. Not that
like
way.
In a like, oh, ghosts actually do live here kind of way.
Yeah, or like maybe check your chocolate, like candy bars.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, they used to always scare us when we were kids that they put like needles in like candy bars and stuff, you know, so be careful about when you go trick-or-treating. But that's the kind
they
of
did say that. I was always like, well, who would do that? Why would you do that? Like for what?
I know.
But yeah, I mean it doesn't look this. I mean, this is not on Halloween. I didn't even pull up a Halloween chart, although we will look at November 1st in a little bit. Let's actually look at that because November 1st is going to feature the actual opposition between Mars and Pluto.
Well, I already feel like it's already Halloween season. Because of the pumpkins, yeah. It's kind of cool.
Right, mostly because of the pumpkins. We shout out to those pumpkins. We love those pumpkins.
That full moon does definitely not look fun. That looks like there's gonna be a lot more people at hospitals than even on a normal full moon. So
yeah. It looks like it'll be easy to get cut. It'll be easy to get, you know, to get an injury or something like that, especially in your home or in the place where you're supposed to be comfortable. You know, I'm not gonna say that.
Maybe not the best time to have a Halloween party that night either.
Yeah, no, that's not the one. That's not the one.
Okay. Noted.
So then looking at November 1st here, November 1st is the day after Halloween, Dia de los Muertos, and it is a new moon. So we've got a new moon in Scorpio on November 1st. What's interesting here is that we've got, so stuff in Scorpio, moon, sun, and Mercury are ruled by Mars. Mars is in Cancer. And so this is at 29 degrees of Cancer. This is Mars opposite to Pluto and ruling our new moon here. So this looks like a moment for, and so new moon opposite to the full moon, right? So the full moon is like bright light in the middle of the night and lots of things, splash bang kind of stuff going on. New moon is going to be dark. So this is a dark night, right? This is, and Scorpio, I mentioned sort of like puppet master energy in Scorpio, that kind of thing, right? Especially with Mars opposite to Pluto. This is, you know, and we've also got this Mercury in Scorpio here, making that trine to Mars in Cancer. Mercury in Scorpio is incisive potentially with the words or the communication, penetrating in some sort of way a lot of times, like getting beneath the surface and like really getting in there to the point in some kind of way. Mercury in Scorpio can sometimes be a little affronting to people who don't have Mercury in Scorpio. Like people who have Mercury in Scorpio will sometimes say stuff, they'll just like shoot real straight at whatever it is, and people will be like, whoa, didn't you want to sugarcoat that or come from the side or something like this? And Mercury in Scorpio just like is trying to hit that thing straight. And so, especially there with Mars in Cancer opposite to Pluto in Capricorn, that this looks like a time for power plays in darkness. For again, like this, I don't know that this one feels quite as like backstabby as that eclipse did, but it definitely does feel like building up oneself in some kind of way that could be that like making oneself dangerous might be a good way to think about it, right? Like if you are trying to be powerful, then not dangerous at all is not the amount of dangerous that you want to be.
No, this is very dangerous. This looks very dangerous.
Yeah, right.
And it's also on that, it's like really close to that degree where everything keeps happening. 1 degrees of Aquarius.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this is going to be hitting that point again.
It sure is. Yeah. And this also, this new moon is averse to both benefics. This one features a Venus in Sagittarius opposite to Jupiter in Gemini, just kind of not looking at any of the stuff we've been talking about.
Right. So there's like no good, all bad. And this is like
I was trying to dodge that, but yeah. What's that?
3 days before the election, right?
Yeah, right. So this is what I was saying about like we have to talk about this election again. Yeah. So if you're gonna steal an election, you know, like, and what I've been saying this whole election cycle for 3.5 years now, what I've been saying is, of course, this election is going to be stolen. Like, obviously, no matter who wins, they will have stolen it, right? So,
no matter if you win, that means you stole it.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I don't see a way around that at this point. It looks like a lot of stuff is happening in darkness here. A lot of, it's very sharp. And I wonder if Venus in Sagittarius opposite to Jupiter in Gemini, I wonder if that's a distraction of some sort. You know what I mean? Like dark stuff is happening over here, but like, hey, we're being super loud in Sagittarius. Like, hey, don't you want to look over here?
Okay. Yeah.
So I would be aware of that kind of thing as it's going on. Like if there's a major news story that happens at this time in like early November, then it's probably not the main thing that's going on.
And it's also like this conjunction is going exact right after sunrise too, which I don't know how important that is, but it seemed important to me about 30 seconds ago when I thought about it.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, anytime you put something on the rising, I think it'll be exact with Mercury on the rising, and so again, this is going to be very good for like some kind of news story that might be actually manipulative in some kind of way. Manipulative, that's a really good Pluto word as well.
But it's almost like the benefics are out of the picture. Like what's in sight is the sun rising, that new moon rising, the Mars up in the middle of the sky. Like that's what's like, I don't know, it might be hard to distract. But at the same time, it's a new moon.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's hard to distract. It is very easy to distract people in 2024. Like there's always something to pay attention to. There's always somebody screaming about something, about some kind of injustice happening somewhere.
Well,
and so
in a way, it's too easy to distract. So it's hard to distract in another way because there's just like there's so much going on. It's like people are, yeah, whatever. It's just another thing. Here's the next new
Sure.
thing.
Hmm?
Whatever.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time,
Yeah.
it's easy to for a lot of stuff to skate by because there's a sea of information. There's a sea of data.
Right.
It's hard to
Yeah.
get to the bottom of what's actually happening ever.
Yeah. Exactly. And so I would think that, thinking with the sun on the rising here and the moon being hidden in that moment, I wonder if we might get another sort of like hiding in plain sight sort of situation where the thing that really like moves the needle might be something that is, like it's not on the front page. It's 3 pages in. And so it makes the news, but like nobody really paid attention to it, that kind of thing. And so I wonder if there might be that kind of situation going on here. So this new moon looks very dangerous. And so with that in mind, I don't necessarily think that it's a bad idea to cultivate dangerous in oneself. You know, like we're at a moment in history where it's probably a good idea to be aware that Percy knows what I'm talking about out here. Percy is not messing with you. Like if you come into the door, you're gonna hear about it. Okay. So, you know,
It's good. The scorpion needs a stinger, it's good for the
right.
scorpion to have a stinger.
Yeah. And important. The scorpion has a stinger because it plays a role, right? There's, and sometimes I think about this with Scorpio and Capricorn both. It's like, why is there so much like weird, dark, gross stuff in the sky? And it's like, well, because it's part of the game, right? And so that this season might be a time to really think into what that means for oneself and like the nature of protection might be aggression in the first place, right? If you like I think sometimes about like I run, and so sometimes I'll be out running and I'll get a dog who like wants to chase me or who wants to be aggressive or something like that. And so if I make eye contact and run directly at that dog, the dog is going to think twice about coming over here. You know what I mean? And it's because I'm not dangerous in the way that a squirrel is not dangerous to a dog,
Like
right?
this, Percy will run and bark at beings much larger than him.
Right. Mm-hmm.
He's like, I will beat you the fuck up. But
Exactly.
you can step
And
on
that
him.
they could, but
yeah.
But are they going right? Exactly. And so there's a certain amount of that might be worth cultivating through this period that has so much danger associated with it.
Yeah, definitely looks like a fun. I didn't even those are some really interesting charts to me. Really like strong charts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Very dynamic. We're we're in an extremely dynamic moment historically. Like we are, we've got the feeling of being launched back into history after like the 90s or whatever, where we like thought it was like, this is the 90s, B. Like we're done with it. You know what I mean? And then like now we are back in it and major historical things are happening, and they're happening at a rate that, like how many memes are there where it's like, I've lived 70 lives since 2020 and this kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Like we are in it and it's going down and power moves are going down and they're happening in plain sight. And what are you going to do about it?
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of that Nine Inch Nails song. I was up above it, now I'm down in it. That part.
Word. Yeah, I feel that.
Nine Inch Nails. But yeah, no, it's very much down in it. Down in it fall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So
falling down in it.
Falling down in it. That's the name for this fall. Yeah. So, what else is anything else happening this fall that we should know about?
Yeah. Well, we're not done. Yeah. So we've been talking about Pluto in Capricorn this whole time. So we got to talk about Pluto into Aquarius now, So Pluto moves into Aquarius on November 20th and is here for keepsies. Now, this is really interesting because at that same moment, we've got the moon in Leo making an opposition to that Pluto and transferring the light from Pluto to Mars. So even though we are past the Mars opposition, this day is like another Mars opposite Pluto day. So we get a bonus Mars opposite Pluto.
Really fun. That's great.
Right?
What,
Uh-huh.
what a nice thing to do, Mr. Moon.
Yeah. Oh, shucks. You shouldn't have. So this sort of like, and this just kind of speaks more to that, like, so if we're thinking about Pluto and Aquarius as a new historical moment, Pluto is going to be in Aquarius for 20 years. And if we think about Pluto as the kind of like fear or horror of a particular historical moment, it's the kind of thing that lays in the back of the subconscious of the culture at large in a moment. Then Pluto in Aquarius, that's going to be our like tech, like fear of tech and the fear of the robots taking over the world and the Terminator and all of this kind of thing, right? So that seems particularly palpable in this moment, especially since we've got this moon moving in to see Mars on the same day. It looks like a situation where like genuine aggression is front of mind. It's a bit like how we have trouble imagining aliens coming to the planet and not being imperial about it, right? Because empire is front of mind for us. And so the idea that aliens will arrive and not be imperial is just like seems kind of weird and like and doesn't really enter the consciousness very much. We don't spend very much time thinking about like mushrooms as aliens or like aliens who show up and all they want to do is talk to trees. They don't even bother with us. They just like hang out and talk to trees or like which is a real possibility, right? Why would they choose to talk to us when there are so many beings out here who are potentially smarter and wiser than we are? And so maybe the aliens, and clearly the aliens don't speak English or any of our like languages that we speak with our tongues, right? So maybe they will come and spend time with other organisms and this kind of thing, right? Genuine possibility. But none of our sci-fi stories focus on that, right? Everything is sort of like we are at the center and it looks like empire or slavery or something like that, right? And so because the moon is with Mars on this one, then I would guess that the fear of technocracy and violence and empire that could be associated with tech or all of that, the sort of like future dynamics, that seems really forward here. Like it's like really coming through in a really strong kind of way. That doesn't necessarily have to be the whole story of all of Pluto and Aquarius. Like I said, this is going to be 20 years long, but this is what it looks like in this moment. And especially because there's been so much danger going on, this looks like the kind of thing that is likely to take hold in the public consciousness. This is also November 20th, so we're like, just past the election at this point, and no one believes it. And so there's a lot of squabbling going on. There's a lot of pointing fingers at voting counters or like the machinery that's associated with that. And, all of that is probably going on in this moment as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. This one seemed important to me just because immediately as Pluto moves into Aquarius and we've got that opposition to Mars, and that is the major thematic thing that we've got going on for this quarter and into next quarter.
Yeah. It's the Mars, Pluto, and the moon.
Uh-huh.
Having fun.
Whole time.
I'm just wondering what that's going to look like too. Like, I wonder how how long it'll take for the winner to be announced. Because like last time
Sure.
it took a little while. It was a little bit of a different situation too, though. Like it was during COVID. Like a lot more people were mailing in and stuff like that.
and I think it was a Mercury retrograde station.
Yeah.
This time on the day of the election, we've got a strong direct Mercury. So that alone, notwithstanding any of the rest of the shit that's going on here, would suggest a sort of quick understanding of like who wins and whatever.
Yeah.
But I expect so much contest.
Yeah.
You know?
Right, definitely. Yeah. So I wonder well, guess we'll see.
Yeah. Does it turn into a coup? I don't know. Like, so,
What are
but
the signs of that? We should look at up the astrological signifiers of coups. What happens?
sure.
That could be a fun research project.
Right. Yeah, well, you're gonna get mired in some of the details, I think, probably around like is it an outside installation or is it an internal coup, and do you even know, like if it was, they've been warning about a Russian or a Chinese plot for however long, like would you be able to tell the difference on election day? Like probably not, you know.
Yeah.
But if you do that research, I would love to get on here and discuss it with you. I bet we would come up with interesting stuff, Banana Republic style,
Yeah, that could be fun. There's so many fun research projects though.
For real. And it turns out that astrology is real. Who knew?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm doing my research project now on spiritual like awakenings. I've got like 14 charts, and there's a lot of fun things that I'm seeing. Definitely.
Yeah, word.
And you just get so much a better of an understanding of how astrology works, and like what a signature, an astrological signature is, because it's not always the same thing. It's like similar, like the similar kinds of things, like a family,
Yeah, thematically related.
Yeah.
All right. So speaking of Mercury direct versus Mercury retrograde, we do have a Mercury retrograde station on November 25th. This is going to be Mercury at 22 degrees of Sagittarius. And so this is interesting because it is in Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter with mutual reception. So Jupiter is in Gemini, ruled by Mercury. So these two are exchanging rulership, and they are opposite to one another. So each of them is in detriment, and each of them is ruling the other. And so we saw an opposition to like Mercury opposite to Jupiter before. This would have been like a week and a half before this. And then we'll see a retrograde opposition, and then we'll see a direct opposition as well. So I think it's really interesting. Mercury retrograde is typically associated with miscommunications, delays, misunderstandings. I typically think of Mercury in Sagittarius as being very wordy, having a lot to say, extremely chatty, maybe like going overboard, over-explaining, oversharing, this kind of thing. And then so we've got the sort of like new ideas component with Jupiter in Gemini. And then, there's also this sort of the square to Saturn in Pisces that's going to be important throughout the Mercury retrograde as well. I would think that that's going to be probably, good for science fiction writing or world building and this kind of thing, right? Narrative and that sort of stuff. So especially if you are at home and writing some kind of fiction that needs to be true to life or something like this, then this is going to be really good for reviewing that and revising that. You're probably going to have to go through some ugly edits through this, but it'll probably come out a little better for it having done that. It doesn't look particularly comfortable, so this is immediately post-election, so everybody's freaking out and all that. We're 3 weeks past or whatever at this point. So I wonder if there might be some kind of like recount or like the thing that you thought was true is not true about that. Especially since we can also see here that the sun is in Sagittarius, making a trine to Mars in Leo here, again with reception. So the sun rules Leo, and so Mars, there's a kind of cooperation there. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think about this, Isaac?
Well, I think I guess I don't really know.
That's what's up.
Mercury goes retrograde quite a bit.
It's true.
And it seems like a better for him to go retrograde. What I see, it's kind of like looking back on the election and what happened, like going over it again, maybe recounting, but also like everybody seeing, kind of like reconsidering their actions and reconsidering like what has happened.
Yeah,
That's kind of what I see.
Sure. Sure. Well, okay. So that's really interesting because the next thing that we have going on after that is a feature of Mercury retrograde is that it goes back and meets the sun. And so we're going to have a Mercury cazimi in Sagittarius at 14 degrees of Sagittarius, and that is more directly opposite to Jupiter at 16 degrees of Gemini. But this happens one day before Mars stations retrograde. So if we're thinking back on how we have acted, if Mercury is words and Mars is action, then there's a certain sense of like, I'm not sure that I did a good job here.
Yeah.
And so this might be like remorseful in some kind of way. Worth noting that we've got the moon in Aquarius here opposite to Mars at this moment as well, right? So, more of this opposition to Mars going on. And so I think of Mercury cazimi as a moment of clarity.
Yeah. Moment of clarity. After a lot of hidden, subversive, underground, like shady
right
being happening, there's a moment of clarity.
Yeah. That's a good point here because it's this doesn't look shady in the ways that where before it was like backstabby, it's going to happen in the darkness and the power moves and all that, right?
Well, also, we've got the mutual reception between Jupiter and Mercury.
Right.
And they're opposite almost exactly. So it's like Jupiter's giving a bunch of wisdom to this Mercury as well. And he's super clear sitting in the hall of the king, giving his, in the heart of the sun. So that definitely looks like a very clear, wise moment. Like after a lot of that shady, like not sure what's going on, all these shady moves, like stuff coming to light, people like, clarity.
Yeah, some kind of clarity here. It's the middle of the retrograde, so we're not out of the woods, right? The way that Austin Coppock always describes that is like we're directly in the middle of the woods. And so if you keep going in any direction, you're headed out of the woods because you're directly in the center, right? And so there is a certain sense of like, okay, if we do move in a direction, then we will find our way out of it and we'll like maybe get some, especially, with that Jupiterian new information, new wisdom, like put it all together, something coherent, big picture sort of stuff. The detail, the information makes sense in some sort of way, then, and that can give us a certain kind of guidance, then that might be cute. The thing about it here is that the next thing that we've got going on after that, once we get to the direct station, is that it is directly trine to Mars retrograde. So Mercury in Sagittarius stations direct at 6 degrees of Sagittarius, and that is trine to Mars retrograde at 5 degrees of Leo.
Yeah, it seems also like Mars in Leo seems a lot more active and able. Mars in Cancer, it's frustrated. That's one of the big words for me for Mars in Cancer. It's like frustrated.
Sure.
And it's like, but Mars in Leo, it's like it still feels like it has a capability, able to do what it wants to do to a certain degree, get things done. It's got fire, but then it's starting this retrograde back, and then it's going to be moving back into Cancer, into this period of like frustration. But at this moment, Mercury is transferring that insight that was gained during that moment of clarity to Mars.
Oh yeah. I hadn't thought about that. That's an interesting point. And they are in a trine relationship, which is typically helpful and supportive, beneficial in some kind of way. So it does look like Mercury is in position to benefit this Mars in some sort of way. Just like a little baton handoff here, like a little sort of like, all right, I learned some stuff. Maybe this is going to be helpful for you on your journey back through the pits of despair as you oppose Pluto and all that. You know what I mean? So through that Mercury retrograde, there's likely to be some good lessons that come up, and some interesting things that could be helpful information on how to navigate the halls of power that have stuff going on that you didn't expect to see, might have hoped not to see, this kind of thing. Thankfully, this time we see that the moon is not involved. The moon is just hanging out in Cancer, chilling, just being the moon this time. Love to see it.
Yeah.
Don't get enough of that these days.
Yeah.
Not in these like important moments, it seems.
Right. So yeah, it's interesting to see the retrograde, the Mercury retrograde kind of like turning into a Mars retrograde, with the same idea around Mercury as words and Mars as actions. Then, like the kind of like rethinking or reimagining, like having to say it again or, articulate it another time. And then that leading to a place of like, I gotta go back and undo what I have done, or something like this with that Mars retrograde. This Mars retrograde looks like it's pretty, very aggressive, to be sure, because Mars is, and Mars retrogrades tend to be that way. But something about it is like extra uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and then going into Cancer. I mean, I also look at
Right.
Mars and Cancer is kind of passive aggressive.
Yeah. Big time.
And it's like you it's that frustration too. It's like you want to you can't take the shot that you want to. You can't be as aggressive as you want to. You have to be, there's like less clarity around it too.
And when that happens, like passive aggression can sort of turn inward a little bit too.
Yeah.
So
and then every time the moon goes through Cancer, then she's going to be hanging out with Mars.
Yeah. And so it'll be when Mars gets, so we're not to that point, right? That's next quarter.
Yeah.
But when that happens, then it'll be moon with Mars in Cancer, and then immediately opposing Pluto in Aquarius as soon as moon moves into Leo. So yeah, and then I know that we're not gonna get to the winter bit here, but just taking a look at the winter solstice chart, the first thing that I thought when I saw that chart was like, it's probably a cold winter.
Damn.
Moon in Virgo, directly opposite to Saturn in Pisces. And that's, obviously ruling the sun here. So, and then Mars sort of like, trudging backward into this opposition to Pluto. And so like an interesting feature of this chart is if you were to actually look outside in the sky in this moment, you would notice a bright red Mars right in the middle of the sky. So That's actually one of the nice things about Mars retrogrades is that Mars looks great in the
Yeah.
sky.
Yeah,
Mhm.
brighter. Yeah.
Super bright, super red.
Yeah.
Yeah. The cold winter. Yeah. And you know what? We've got all the fruit did really well this year. There's apples dropping everywhere. Best apples.
Hell yeah.
Deer are happy. And that's what they say is like when there's a lot of fruit, that means it's going to be a cold winter.
Interesting.
Huh. Huh. Yeah.
So had a barely winter last year, so maybe.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I would think that this quarter is probably a good time to, especially if we're moving into a cold winter afterward, this is probably a good time to gear ourselves up to make ourselves as strong and dangerously protective as we need to be on the assumption that there are going to be threats.
Yeah.
And so, that part of the trouble with looking at astrology is noticing that things look rough in the future. And so as you look at it, you have to be like, right. And there's a kind of dread that can be associated with that. But there is the potential to prepare for it.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's, it does look like there are going to be threats. And it sucks to be like, there are threats coming. But if you didn't know that there were threats coming, then you might be open or vulnerable or not as dangerous as you maybe would otherwise be, right? It's the saying is that it's better to be a warrior in the garden than it is to be a farmer on the battlefield, right?
Mhm.
And so this might be a good moment for us to shore up our abilities to navigate the blade.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like good advice.
Mhm.
Well, definitely. These are some pretty potent charts. It's that's a lot of strong charts there. It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. It's an election year. I don't know what's going to happen, but it'll be interesting to like for the flesh on the bones too. The astrology charts are like kind of like bones. You can kind of see like the framework of the story, but then when things actually happen, then it's like, wow, that's what that meant.
Mhm.
So
Uh,
I guess we'll
yeah.
see.
We will see. We will see. And we will improve our forecasting tech
Yeah.
as we do that. That's part of the reason why we do these forecasts so that we can look back and be like, oh, I said that,
Mhm.
and it either hit or it didn't,
Mhm.
and then I can understand what I'm looking at a little better as we move into the future.
Yeah, and then part of it's hard to do that so generally with this kind of mundane astrology because
Sure.
it's each individual person is going to be affected differently. But then,
Somebody is going to have a great fall. Like
right,
there are
yeah,
going to be people out here who are just killing the game, right?
Mhm.
people who are especially, I think, into poisoning.
That's true. That's true.
Having
The
that,
puppeteers are good. Love this
yeah,
shit.
they're gonna be great. Like people who, yeah, good making subversive like propaganda.
Uh-huh.
They're gonna
We're
have
gonna
a
have a great year.
great quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It's
Um,
true.
I'm gonna be hunting. I think that's a decent thing to do
For
during
sure.
this quarter. So
That's big subterfuge energy. Let me
yeah,
let me stay dark and quiet and so no one can smell me, no one knows that I'm coming, so that I can kill someone, Like
yeah, and then eat
that's
them.
the vibes.
I mean, the deer did really well this year. They ate a lot of my garden for the first time ever. So I just
Mm,
figure it's time to
sure. Reciprocity,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay, well
for sure.
this has been a lot of fun, Zamboni. I'm liking these quarters. They keep it fresh too.
Yeah.
It's always
Hmm.
fun to hang out with you as well.
And it's good to like signal before you turn in a way, like you're
Mm.
giving us and our listeners like an
Mm.
opportunity to put up our defenses for this fall quarter to, insulate our homes better or
Hmm.
whatever we need to do. So yeah, thank you so much for taking the time and for driving today.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah,
Appreciate it.
it's always a delight to be here with you all. So thank you so much for being here with me and inviting me on another time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, until the winter quarter.
We'll see you soon.
Yes,
Ahead. Yeah. Cheers.
got it. Check out next time.
Bye.